I'd like to welcome you to our April 14th City Council meeting. In the interest of time efficiency and ensuring that everyone who wishes to address the council is given the opportunity to do so, the following will apply to all comments made by the public. If you desire to be recognized by the chair, please fill out a request form and present it to the city clerk present here in council chambers. Each speaker shall be allotted 3 minutes to address the council, unless such time is extended by the mayor or by questions from council. Groups shall designate a spokesperson to avoid repetition of comments. Every effort will be made to avoid interrupting speakers. Thank you for participating in your city government. Please silence all electronic devices. With that, I call this council meeting to order. Could we please stand together for the invocation by Pastor Randy Law from the National Day of Prayer of Osceola County. And if you will, remain standing after the prayer for the invocation.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Blackwell.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Here.
Councilmember Urban.
Here.
Councilmember Askew.
Here.
Councilmember Trace.
Here.
The next item is our agenda update. Are there any items on the agenda that need to be added, corrected, deleted?
No, Mayor, there are no corrections or deletions to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Brings us to our presentations. At this time, we have a presentation by the Economic Development Division regarding the Quarterly Economic Development Report. Ms. Antoinette Forbes.
Good evening, Antoinette Forbes, Economic Development Manager. I'm going to present not necessarily the quarterly report, but more the semi-annually, because I think it's been about 6 months or so. So I thought this time, instead of providing you again with the quarter, but give you kind of a summation of what's been happening year to year, starting with 2019, which is when we started tracking some of this data. You know, I'm very data-driven because I think that's a unbiased way to track our status. And I think that with the growth that comes, we need to look at not just population, but our businesses and how they develop as part of that growth. So our business tax registrations, they started at a little over 1,300 in 2019. They increased over 500 in 2020. And last year, they were at 2,081. So you'll see that over 3 years, there's been a 38% growth. Also, I started tracking our certified business registration. That was as of 2020. So in 2020, we had 19 DBEs, which are disadvantaged business enterprises as classified by the SBA. And last year, they increased by 5, but that's something to 24. It should be noted that because we noticed as staff that there weren't a lot of certified businesses, we did hold a technical assistance webinar on how to become a certified business. And I also want to mention that of those 24 DBEs, 4 of them are registered as veteran-owned businesses. I also started looking at our home-based businesses because, again, as our population grows, not everyone is necessarily in a brick and mortar yet. So we do not have 2019 data, but in 2020, we had 541 home-based businesses, and last year, up into early this year, we had 844, which shows a 36% increase in the last 2 years. So I think this is also in correlation to the pandemic, where many people started working from home and started to expand, if not go out on their own, and do home-based ventures. We also track our commercial development. I want to be clear that this is something that economic development tracks and not necessarily is responsible for, but we do think that we have an indirect effect. And so as of 2019, we offered the amount of new commercial square footage versus the valuation. So you see the total over the 3 years, we have a little over 70 million in new commercial development. I also wanted to mention that our BTRs, while they have steadily increased, we also are trying to make sure we increase the amount of targeted industries as well. We also track the CRA taxable value, which the CRA falls under economic development. And you'll notice that over the past 3 years, there's been a 10% growth, and especially under the commercial development, over $159 million in commercial market value. I also want to mention that when we talk about the growth in taxable value, that the CRA provides a direct impact on that growth. So I'll give an example of the old Makinson Hardware building, that once the CRA purchased it and then sold that property and the redevelopment occurred, that one property had increased by 32% just last year in taxable value. I also like to break up the update business retention versus business attraction. So under retention, we've tried to offer technical assistance to our local businesses. So we had a webinar in partnership with the SBA called Show Me the Money, where they provided different ways to access capital for not just existing businesses, but also for startups as well. So it covered everything from SBA-sponsored activity and private funds as well. We also launched the Paint, Plant, Pave program, which we've started receiving applications for. And we also, in partnership with Public Works Solid Waste, started the STEPS program, where city staff goes out in the morning to help clean up the litter. We continued with our marketing with our 2 newsletters, one for business retention, the other one for business attraction. And of course, we are also sponsors of the monthly market. Cyclovia, which is our annual event, this time around, we had about 6 or 7 sponsors, and I thought it was important to mention them. I'm sorry, Cyclovia is our culinary bicycle tour, which we now call Cyclovia. And so our sponsors included Bike Walk Central Florida, Metro Plan Orlando, the St. Cloud Police Department, Fdlt Mobility Week, Fdlt Rethink Your Commute, VO Ride, which offers the scooters, HDR Engineering Consultants, as well as Smitty's Cycles, which is a local bicycle repair shop. We also launched our Shop Local During the Holidays campaign with Tinsel. He was featured at some of our local businesses, and we did a social media campaign in order to promote people to shop local. We continued with our virtual business walk campaign, where we provide one-on-one counseling to local businesses, including some of our resource providers. I also thought it was important that we make sure as staff that we go outside of City Hall to talk about some of the things that the city can help with local businesses. So we presented to Leadership Osceola. Other activities include our partnerships, and we are all about partnerships because there's no way that we can, at the staff level, do everything on our own. So we partnered with the Osceola Chamber on their Skills Up campaign, which was a skills assessment, skills need assessment to find out what programming needs to be instituted on a high school and junior high school level in order to make our workforce more readily available and attractable as far as talent is concerned. We've begun drafting an RFP for a mixed-use parking garage. The CRA 5-year finance and implementation plan was adopted, and now we are currently looking at implementing it. We also are members of the OTEC Institutional Advisory Committee, where we once again provide guidance as far as career and technical education training. We are at the final stages of our CDBG/CV business grant program, where to date we've provided up to $200,000 worth of assistance from that program. We also did our annual business survey. That's a survey where we find out what are the perceived needs from our local businesses. Participants of that program, I think the first 50 participants received like a $10 gift card to one of the local restaurants. And then, of course, our parking agreement, because you can never have enough parking downtown. And so that agreement, the cost of that agreement is split between ED and CRA with the First United Methodist Church to provide public parking during city events. On the business attraction side, we had our Economic Development Summit, which is our annual event. I say annual, even though we were unable to have it the previous year because of COVID. So this was the first summit we had under my tenure, and it was completely virtual. We had over 25 panelists and about 80 or so participants, which included site selectors, investors, real estate agents, commercial real estate agents, to promote St. Cloud as a destination location for their business. We also have that completely recorded for anyone who's looking to view it as well. And we also provided an updated infographic just giving people a snapshot of what St. Cloud has to offer. And I think on this next slide will be, yes, so while that prompts, we offered a series of commercials with our, with that audience for the summit, because one of the things that's most important to site selectors is our future workforce, and how do we intend to promote our educated population as a group that are ready for success. And so this is one of the commercials that we offer for the summit.
St. Cloud continues to provide outstanding educational opportunities for its citizens. Part of the school district of Osceola County, St. Cloud also hosts a wide array of private, technical, and post-secondary schools that produce outstanding educational experiences for its students. Osceola Technical College provides career dual enrollment, allowing high school students to significantly impact their lives before or instead of a university setting. In addition, OTech works with the business community to design certified courses of study that positively affect St. Cloud's workforce. Valencia College is a vibrant community of learning, offering AA and AS degrees, UCF at Osceola, and accelerated skills training programs that focus on intensive real-world training. Offering a variety of learning opportunities both inside and outside the classroom, Valencia ensures a positive and successful experience for our diverse community. In fact, in 2020, 425 students participated in Valencia's Accelerated Skills Training Program, which provides hands-on training in medical assisting, welding, carpentry, core construction skills, warehouse operations, and more. Over the course of training, students earned nearly 1,500 certifications, resulting in a completion rate of 95% and a job placement rate of 81%. Our education system is second to none, and we are poised to make St. Cloud the center place for education.
So that was one of the commercials, one of about 6 or so that were featured to highlight St. Cloud to our business community, or hopefully our potential future business community. Also under business attraction is our business tax receipt reimbursement program, which was adopted by the CRA board last year. We have now started to get applications in for that. If you recall, the point of that program is to bring new businesses, particularly the small mom and pop ones that may think that, you know, the cost associated with that BTR is expensive and that they're just starting out. We want to empathize with that and encourage them to come back. And so to date, we've issued 5 BTR grants. 2 of those are recipients from the monthly market. Rito Live is an annual event that we've started attending. We attended the one this year, and that one attracts franchise restaurants and retailers, and the idea is to go and pitch St. Cloud of why it's a good destination location. And so we've started those conversations as well. In reference to the seaplane, which falls under, seaplane base, which falls under economic development. The Fdlt Aviation Economic Impact Study was completed, and a stakeholder meeting with local pilots was hosted by our Aviation coordinator, Terry Lloyd, which included the Parks Department and Economic Development. ED will be requesting $120,000 in the upcoming budget in order to provide the match for that Fdlt grant, as well as design and permitting costs. I've also included the upcoming Phase 2 downtown redevelopment project, revitalization project that's coming. Also, under business attraction, someone may ask, how do we get our leads? So without, besides organically setting up and cultivating relationships, we also get them through the county via Enterprise Florida. So these were 2 projects that were presented to us that we pitched for. We never know if we're going to get them, and we never know if we are chosen until we are in fact chosen, but these are just examples of some of the companies who have shortlisted St. Cloud as a potential location. So one of them, for example, Project Backpack, was a company that was looking for 15 to 3,000 square feet of space for battery manufacturing. And so I think we're almost towards the end here. These are some of the other activities that we're working on. Under attraction, we presented to Osceola CCIM, which is the Commercial Realtors Association. We've also met with Enterprise Florida Minority and Small Business Entrepreneurship and Capital Programs Division to see how we can better cultivate that relationship and create some programs that are more distinctive for some of our minority businesses. We also meet monthly with the SBA to find out what upcoming programs or projects are occurring so we can be at the forefront and pass it on to our business community. I mentioned our partnership with Osceola Schools, CTE, and helping with their comprehensive local needs assessment. We've also started featuring a property of the month in our newsletter in order to promote that to local businesses as well as to commercial real estate agents to just find a better way to highlight St. Cloud as a potential destination location. And then lastly, we are currently working on revamping our economic development microsite. Most site selectors, that's the first thing they're going to look at before they ever call you. And so it needs to be reflective of St. Cloud, not to mention our existing businesses. They need to know what programs that we have available without always having to pick up the phone. So we really want to revamp the site, and now we've started doing the mood boards and design mock-ups, and hopefully we'll have that within the next coming months. We've also started working in on the direction of our PIO with Quest Marketing to create a CRA marketing campaign so that as we start implementing the programs and projects that are mentioned in the CRA 5-year adoption program, or plan rather, that the community is aware that these are kind of how the CRA funds should be used, and that we are working in tandem with how a CRA is supposed to. Also under the CRA is the VFW remodeling project, as well as the CRA is paying for a portion of the downtown Phase 2 revitalization project. We'd also, at the latter of this year, would like to start incorporating FAM tours, which are site familiarization tours. That's where we bring commercial realtors to St. Cloud and actually take them through the St. Cloud experience. And then lastly, our annual business climate report, that's the one that we sent the annual survey to businesses. I just finished the final draft of that this week, so I hope to have it out within the next few weeks. Is now with the graphic designer. It's good bathroom reading. And I think that concludes my report, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. A lot of information, a lot of work. Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. You do a fantastic job, and I mean, our economic development is nothing like it was when I first got here, so kudos to you on all of your hard work. So on your update, you had mentioned that the parking at the church was for city events, but it's all the time. It's excluding, so it's not like it's only at a city event, it's available all the time. And has there been any work done with wayfinding to let people know that that parking is available?
We are working on that now. It's currently in draft.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that I consistently hear is just how hard it is for businesses to open in the city of St. Cloud. And I don't know if that's like an old feeling and things have changed, or, you know, if it's still, you know, I can think of several businesses that have reached out to me that have taken a long time to get through the process. Is there a way to start tracking that from, you know, that way we have like data to say, you know, the average time for a new business to open takes X months, and compare that to a national average, you know, so that we have some kind of basis to back it up, or maybe we do see that it does take a long time. And I know, you know, there are case by case, but I constantly hear that it's very hard to open a business in the city of St. Cloud. So if that was something we could kind of track to get some metrics on it, I would love to see that.
I'm going to let Mr. Sturgeon speak to that, okay?
Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor, that's a great idea. So here's where we're at. And in fact, I think it was several meetings ago, Mr. Urban had requested that we look how we can streamline that process. In fact, we had our first meeting today. Mr. Abreu and David Bridle came to me with a bunch of ideas to improve that process. But I think the metrics would be a good way to see are we really meeting the mark. So we will move forward. We have some actionable items, and we'll move forward with that, and we'll start to track the metrics.
Great, thank you.
Can I add one thing? We also have a How to Start a Business in St. Cloud webinar that's coming up. I think it's May the 25th, but we'll begin advertising for it just for that reason, for people who are thinking about it and have no idea what the process is. And then that will be led through our business navigator as well as our strategic initiatives analysts.
Great.
Councilmember Askew.
That webinar, is there a way that we can film that and we can put that on our website? So if somebody has that question, just click on the link and
Have an answer for that too.
Okay.
So all of our webinars are recorded, and we've now started putting them on the city's YouTube page. And then we also include them in the next issue of the newsletter for anyone who missed it. Also, anyone who has registered automatically gets a thank you and hears the recording.
Okay, awesome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Ms. Forbes. Excellent job. This brings us to our citizens forum. Any person who desires to comment on an item not on this agenda is provided this opportunity to address the city council. Each person is requested to complete a signing form to be provided to the presiding officer prior to or as soon as is practical thereafter the person addresses the council. When you come forward, we ask that you please state your name and address for the record, and we will ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Priscilla Harrington, is that correct? Just step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Priscilla Harrington, 2940 Jebediah Loop, St. Cloud, 34772. And I have been a grateful member of the St. Cloud Crystal Isle Pool for almost 9 years. It has been, I've been blessed to be able to go to this pool 5 days a week, almost year-round, and enjoy all that it has to offer. The staff, the lifeguards, and the patrons have been delightful. I've made a lot of close friends there. I recently moved here. So much to my dismay, things have changed at the pool recently. There is a group led by a coach named George Mathis, I believe, who has changed the whole atmosphere. It's become a hostile atmosphere at the pool most days that I'm there. And it goes through every level of the patrons that come, whether they're old, like me, or young. The attitude of this man, and he has a lovely group of children. I love children. They're there as a swim team. He is the most disrespectful person I've ever come across. His language, his constant harassment for people who kindly ask him to turn down the music he's blaring, or whatever the request is, he's sort of just taken over the whole pool. The lanes, you know, what we're hearing, what we're listening to. I go to an aquafit class there, as do many of my friends that are here. And, you know, it's been, over the years, we've become accustomed to listening mostly to oldies music to do our exercise to. Well, that gets drowned out from hard rock. And, you know, I love hard rock. I'm not saying I don't like the music, but it is so loud and it's just so disrespectful to play music, so it's affecting every person at the pool, not just his kids who are swimming in the lanes. I'm an advocate for children. I was a school nurse, worked in a school system for 25 years, and I've never heard any teacher or coach or anybody that's in charge of children speak over them the way he does. Rude comments to people that are in maybe the aquafit class. That behavior that he does almost every single time I've attended the pool is affecting those young people that he's coaching. In any school I've ever worked in, that behavior would never be tolerated.
Yes,
It's inexcusable. And the name calling he does, you just wouldn't believe it. You know, I've seen lane swimmers come to the pool who've always come as long as I've been going there, and they come at certain times, and they're usually a lane available. There's never a lane available. And so now, at noontime, when they usually come, I don't know if they're coming on their lunch break or what, they're not showing up anymore because they're disgusted with what they are dealing with.
If you could wrap it up real quick, please.
I'm just here to say, how can this kind of behavior be tolerated in a city pool? It's just, to me, it's despicable, and it ruins my time at the pool every time.
Thank you for sharing your concerns. This will not be tolerated. We're going to ask our city managers, please speak to this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, ma'am, I'm sorry you had to experience this. Mayor and council members, we've had difficult interactions with the president of SCAT probably for the last 6 months, but it's escalated in the last couple of weeks. And it is definitely intolerable, and I need to take some significant action. And again, I want to make sure you understand that this is not against the kids or the coaches, it's against this gentleman. And I will work with the city attorney to take care of this issue and get it stopped. It's not acceptable in any area in the city.
And you will be addressing this
I will.
ASAP, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We're going to get on top of this. I have Diane Wetzel. Are you wanting to speak to the same issue?
I'm in agreement with everything she said, but I've got something to add. My name is Diane Weitzel. I live at 5700 Lake Lizzie Drive, St. Cloud, 34771. I have been a longtime member of the pool and have been coming there for over 10 years. And in this time, never once did I feel the need to come to the city hall to make a complaint for anyone or anything. It's always been a great place to go. Until now. The pool used to be a happy, enjoyable place, and it's become, well, with George Mathis coming in, let me get back up here. Okay, so he started coming with his group. He has taken over most of the lanes of the pool on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 1 hour and a half. From 12 to 1:30, which is considered open swim time, means open swim for everybody. That's the way I understand it. So many people have come there for their lunchtime, and they want to swim laps on their lunch break and leave. Well, you get there, and there's reserve signs, and he's got one kid in each lane, and they're taking up almost all the pool, all the lanes, I should say. So he pretty much monopolizes the pool, and he's rude, and let's see here. He blasts his music so loud that if anybody would yell for help, they wouldn't even hear him, because it's just blasting, and if you ask him to turn it down, he just says he doesn't have to. So, let's see. Oh, yeah, he's also never on time for his private reservations that he has from 12 to 1:30. Half the time or part of the time, he doesn't show up till 20 after 12 or 12:30. And there's reserved signs on these lanes, so many people come in, they don't want to use a lane because they're assuming that person is going to be there and he's just wasting other people's time. So if this is allowed to continue, then what will stop other people from wanting to do the same thing as he does? I mean, I don't know. I think that they need to do something and keep this from continuing on. Otherwise, other people will also want to come and do the same thing he does and make reservations throughout the whole pool. So I'm hoping that you can do something about this.
Councilmember Matheny?
Thank you. City manager, are there not like code of conduct rules to use the pool? I mean, you would think, like blasting music and things like that could be handled easily at the staff level. Is there not?
That's correct. We've had those discussions with him, and again, they're ignored. So like I said, we have to escalate this to the next step. And again, ma'am, I apologize that you have to deal with this and have to come here for this.
Yeah,
But
the
we
way
will take
he-
care of it.
The way he monopolizes the pool, I mean, he pretty much takes it over. So I hope you can do something to change it. Thank you.
And I guess my follow-up question is, so that's allowed for people to come during open swim and reserve lanes?
That's correct. We have a contract with SCAT for so much part of the pool, but again, he's showing up late. I did not know that till now. Thank you for sharing. And again, he has a certain part of the pool that he can reserve during specific times. So we have open swim. We work with everybody. It's been very well coordinated. And again, gentleman keeps breaking the rules and making threats to staff. So
Is he new?
no.
I don't know. He's just started coming there in the last few months that we've seen him, so,
Right, thank you.
thank you.
Councilmember Askew?
Is this contract a contract that can't be broken, or is he breaking the rules that Bill or Mr. Sturgeon should be able to address it?
We believe that Mr. Sturgeon should be able to address it, and of course, the contract's in place, the contract is with the organization, and for the most part, as we understand it, the staff doesn't have issues with the swimmers or even most of the coaches that are there. It's just one particular individual that's associated with the organization, so we frankly have been hesitant to pull the trigger on canceling the contract because it would impact a lot of the swimmers and the individuals. So I think Mr. Sturgeon is wanted to make, based on his last comments, wants to make sure that the council understands we're going to try to do what we can to take care of it. The next step, if we can't get it resolved, would be for the contract to be canceled and the SCAT organization to no longer have an ability to use the pool.
Mayor, can you trespass one person? Can you give them something to that?
Although it's a public facility, it's obviously a limited access public facility, so the city can control who's allowed to be on the premises.
Anthony Smith, is that correct?
Yes, MIT, no H. That's correct. I'm also here on that same subject.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Anthony Smith. I live at 1437 Sugarberry Lane, St. Cloud, Florida, 34772. And I'm here on behalf of the group that just spoke about the pool conditions since I've been there. I've been there a little over 6 years. It's never had a problem like this. I personally had an interaction with this gentleman. Our group had a complaint about him playing the music too loud. We couldn't hear our own music. So after I took a shower, I walked over to him politely, and I said, "I'd like to speak to you." He says, "I can hear you." I said, "Could you turn it down? I don't want to shout over your music." He says, "I'm not turning it down for you or anyone else in this pool. They can't make me. I reserve this time. It's my time, my music." I said, "You're very rude. I'm trying to be polite, but I'm now going to report you to the management." He says, "I don't care." As I was walking away, not when I was standing there face to face, he says, "If you don't like it, old man, turn down your hearing aid." And I just had to hold my temper.
I'm glad you did.
And even my wife was surprised that I came back and didn't go to jail. But I'm telling you, the man is very rude. Now, what he does with his 3 reserved lanes, that's fine. I have no problem with that. He pays for that. That's fine. But he's threatened me by saying, "I can have you thrown out of here because I control this pool. I run this pool. I'm doing you guys a favor letting you swim. I said, oh, really? I'm a member of this pool. I pay to swim here. And I swim laps. Now, what he does with his 3 lanes is fine. But then what he does, let's say I'm swimming in a lane next to him. When I'm done, he throws his kid in it, so the guy that's waiting to use the lane can't use it. And he does it all the way down the line. In the subway, they call that manspreading. He's not letting anyone else sit or use the pool. The other end of the pool, some of us just walk in that lane. But the one end is used for private lessons. And we don't mind that because they let us use the other half of the lane. He doesn't let us use anything. And he threatens us that he can have us, he controls it. He's in charge. And that's all I want to say, that he's very rude, arrogant, and he thinks he owns the world. And I'd like to see something, you're talking about trespassing or whatever. It might be a good lesson for him to learn, maybe 3-4 months. If he does it again, throw him out completely. That's what I would suggest. Get him out of there for a couple of months. Maybe the SCAT team will talk to him. You're talking about other people. We have lifeguards there that can teach those kids how to swim. Our lifeguards teach the homeschoolers. Why can't ask them if they'd like to make a little extra money and teach the SCAT team, rather than this gentleman who is not a gentleman?
Yes, sir.
And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Well, again, I'm sure all the city council apologizes you're having to deal with this, but you will not have to deal with it much longer.
I appreciate it. Because
You have been heard, and it will be
I
dealt
do want to
with.
say that I brought it to attention of the manager, I don't know, I can't think of her name, Gabby. And she said she's tried, he just doesn't listen. So that's why I want to come here, because somebody here has got to listen.
Thank you, sir. We have heard, we have listened, and we will take care of it,
Thank you.
won't we?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Giovanni Osario is... Please step up to the mic, please. State your name and address for the record.
Sí, mi nombre es Giovanni Osorio. Tengo traductor, no hablo.
My name is Giovanni Osorio.
Ubicado, mi food truck está ubicado en la.
Step up to the mic, please. Step up closer to the mic. There you go.
Nuestro food truck está ubicado en la 2501 en la 13th Street en San Cloud.
Our food truck is located on the
2501.
2561 on Tennessee in St. Cloud.
Nuestro proceso con el food truck comenzó en el 2019 en la 5145 aquí en la Irlo Bronson.
Our process with the food truck, we started on the 2019 on the Irlo Bronson.
Cuando no era necesario el documento nuevo del uso condicional.
When it wasn't necessary, the new document for the authorization.
Me tuve que mover de esta ubicación por razones de construcción.
I had to move from that location for they was doing a construction.
Y comenzamos hace 2 meses aproximadamente en la ubicación nueva en la 2501 en la 13th Street, San Cloud.
And we started to operate on the 2 months ago on the 2501 13th Street in St. Cloud.
Nos orientamos con el señor Abimael y David, que trabajan para el City de San Cloud.
Mr. Abismael and David just told us that work with St. Cloud talk to us about.
Ellos me dijeron que una vez yo llenara la documentación y llenara la documentación del uso condicional.
They told us that if we fill up everything for the documentation from conditional use.
Y pagara los $900, yo iba a poder operar hasta que se viera el proceso.
And if we pay the $900, we can operate all the time until the process or the situation can see by you guys.
So, en el día de ayer me visitó la señora Alexandra del Código y me dijo que no iba a poder abrir hasta que se viera mi caso.
So yesterday, Alexandra just came to my food truck and told us that we have to stop operating until our case can be can be processed.
So, la razón por la que yo estoy aquí es que estoy tratando de defender el sustento de mi familia. Somos una familia de 4 que queremos aportar a esta ciudad. Nos han dado el permiso de tax receipt, nos han cobrado los $900 y al final del camino nos terminan diciendo que no podemos operar en el lugar hasta que se vea el uso condicional.
So we are here because this is our only sustenance for my family. We are married, we are chef, and that's our only job. I just want to be by the law. We pay the $900, and we just want to, guys, you to reconsider all that decision that you took about the food trucks.
Mr. Sturgeon, can you speak to this issue?
Yes, thank you,
at this
Mayor,
point?
council members. If you recall, last February 2021, we started to address the food truck issue, and this council directed us to develop a conditional use permit process. There were 7 food truck vendors that are included in that direction. Through several missteps on both sides, admittedly, first off, we didn't get the proper documentation we thought to make a decision to bring and make a recommendation to the council. We've subsequently come up with a process. We have a food truck manual that shows all the steps that need to be taken. And in fact, this gentleman was involved in the process, but he left the city and came back. The reason he was code enforced was because we had a complaint about the generator. Again, and right now, we've had 1 out of the original 7, we had 1 vendor drop out, and one of them went to a brick and mortar in town. So we have 5 left in the process. And I'd like to have Mr. Abismail Abreu to come up and talk about how this process has worked. He's got a complete report, and David and him can come up and tell us what we're doing moving
Abismail?
forward.
Good evening, I'm Ismael Abreu, Strategic Initiative Analyst for the City of St. Cloud. And I just want to give a background and a report for City Council so that you are aware of where we are and what's going on with the, specifically with the applicant here for Flavors of Heaven. It is correct, Flavors of Heaven was one of the original 7 food trucks that was involved when the City Council decided in February of 2021 to allow food trucks through a conditional use process. As the applicant mentioned, they were located in a different address. Can't recall the address. And ¿cuál es la dirección?
La primera que estuve en el 2019 fue la 5154.
So 5154 Earl Bronson, 5145 Earl Bronson Memorial Highway. If you recall, that I believe that was a bar owned by one of our one of the business owners here in St. Cloud that's currently going through construction to be an outdoor storage. Unfortunately, the owner of that property asked Mr. Osorio to move out. Now, backtracking a little bit, when the conditional use process was instituted, I myself, as the business navigator at the time, sent a personal email to each one of the food trucks owner, the 7, introducing myself, introducing the conditional use process, and pretty much telling them what the next steps should be. Flavors of Heaven was one of those members in that email list. I did not hear anything from them for several months. I reached out to them once again. I have documentation of all of this, and I did not hear for this one for many months until earlier this year when they were cited by code enforcement and told to come to the city and get a conditional use process. But now at this point, they were already located at a different location, not where the initial research, where council gave direction to the city to make sure that these individuals that are operating through the conditional use process continue operating while they go through the process. So by them moving to another location, being away from contact with the city for over a year, and coming back at the beginning of this year with a new location, pretty much submitting an application anew, unfortunately, staff at this point has their hands tied as far as what we can do and we can allow. As it is currently written in the Land Development Code, without a conditional use approval by the City Council, no business should be able to operate. And that is exactly what we're following, well, with this case with Mr. Osorio. He's considering a new application, not under the original 7 that was given special consideration for the city to try to help them out as they go through the original conditional use process. But then coming earlier this year, now we have to consider the new code and follow what we have instituted in the land development code, that is that no business can operate without an approval from city council or conditional use. They have submitted an application and they have reviewed comments because it's not sufficient enough to be reviewed. And that's the issues that we're having with all of the food trucks, even the ones that are currently operating, that are going through the process. We're having a difficult time reviewing what is submitted. And it's very understandable as far as we're not dealing with professional engineers, as you may know, that are used to this type of processes, and they can put together plans that are needed for review by staff. So what have the city done to help accommodate this? We have one scheduled pre-app meetings for all of the food trucks in the city. We have developed a business guide, which David will most graciously please pass around the, oh, you already did it? Perfect. We have developed a food truck guide to help them put together a concept plan for staff to be able to review their applications, and for them to be able to submit an application that's good enough to be reviewed for staff, that can address some of the issues that have been found with the past submittals. When this was developed, myself and David Bridle met with every single one of the food trucks. We went over the checklist, we went over the guide, and we gave the food trucks 2 options. You either move forward with what you already submitted and run the risk of being denied by council because staff is unable to recommend approval with your current application, or we give you a month, look over the guide, come back to us with a more complete application, and so that we can do a proper review and proper recommendation for city council. As it is right now, we have a few of them that are going through the process. We have met with them recently, as early as yesterday, to come up with, to explain exactly what it is that city needs for them to be able to operate and be able to have a complete package. I believe there was a question of how many of them realistically have a shot to operate, and out of the 5 that are still being under review, 4 of them have a good shot based on the location they are to be recommended for approval, bearing that they submit everything that they require, and then there's 1 that we're still working on. But as far as the case for Mr. Osorio, that's next to me here, unfortunately, because of how the land development code is written, staff is unable to have him continue to operate unless his application comes in front of this council and this council recommends approval.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I guess my frustration with this whole process is it's taken way too long. And I said it, and the city manager even says I was right, because I said we need to make a decision and not drag it out, and that's kind of where we're at. Personally, I think if we don't have complete applications, they need to just be returned to the applicant. It's called a sufficiency review. Return it to the applicant, return their application dollars, and not consider them even in process until we have a complete application. That's my personal opinion on that. I think by letting it linger and people keep operating, I think that just makes everything a lot more complicated. I did ask the city manager today when we were talking about it, we had talked about trying to find some place in the city that, the food trucks could go in kind of an organized fashion. I know the city's still looking for opportunities for that, but I'm sorry that he's going through this issue. I know the food truck, it's also got a flashing strobing light that I don't think we should probably have on the food truck facing 192. But I mean, that's my personal opinion. I think at this point we should just say, if it's not complete applications, return them, return the dollars, and then not even start processing them until it is a complete, sufficient application. I know I talked with Ms. Miller 6 months ago about this, and I saw some of the applications, and they're not anywhere near being able to be reviewed. And even part of the application is the property owner has to sign the application, and even a lot of them, they don't have, the property owner hasn't signed the application. So I don't even know why we're even letting it through the doors and considering it under review.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. I like the little checklist thing. Just an example of a site plan would probably help too, so they know kind of what to look for. But so I agree with what Deputy Mayor Matheny just said. But do we need specific direction on this application itself, or?
I don't know exactly what the applicant is asking for. I would just explain the process and what the reason for code enforcement is.
Mr. Manzares, could you speak?
Well, the only potential direction I think that the staff could get is if the council wishes to extend a similar grace period that was put in place with some of these earlier ones that stayed in the process.
But this is one of the ones that was in the process before, right?
I don't think staff is, because of the change in locations and the maneuver, it wasn't considered to be one of the ones that was in the process.
Correct.
Okay.
So it was one of the original ones. However, two things have happened since then. They moved out of the location they were, and they went missing in action for several months. So to us, they were out of the picture. Then they came back at the beginning of this year. So it was a year gap that we have no information from the applicant or contact at all.
Councilmember Askew.
So I would assume that the governor's executive order is still intact. That's the reason we're heading down this road in food trucks, Mr. Manzares?
I thought it was
You mean the legislative action that dealt with
Yes.
self-contained food trucks?
Right.
Yes, that's part of the reason why we're moving this direction.
Okay, and the reason I didn't vote for allowing food trucks, because I think conditional use is not the right way, but I guess I was the only one who felt that way. It's almost like if a business is gonna allow the food truck there, why are we making the food truck do it? Why don't we make the business do it? They can do everything they need. The food truck leaves, they have access to another food truck. I don't know, the only reason I didn't like conditional use in this particular incident is because I didn't think it would ever get done, and I'm completely right. It's just really difficult, and this conditional use is great for a lot of other things. In this incident, it just didn't seem to fit the need. I don't know what the need is, and I don't know how to take care of this or the solution, but it just seems to drag a commercial business out that far, be it a food truck or anything, is just not good service from the city.
Well, and Mr. Askew, if I just may comment about that, one of the early on issues we had with this was that the owners of the property were not the ones participating in the application process, and there was some difficulty being able to explain that to the vendors, basically, who we were dealing with. And so I believe just about all the initial contacts we had were not from the owner. They didn't have authority of the owner, and staff had to work through that to make sure the owner of the property even wanted to get a conditional use permit.
See, but wouldn't this step by step, wouldn't you put the owner of the land through that process? And then they have maybe a separate, easier process, because it already passed the first set of training? I don't know.
But that was part of the difficulty, basically getting these applications sufficient, as Deputy Mayor Matheny referred to, to make sure the owner was aware of what the application was and was involved with it.
That's the last page of it.
Well, we're kind of at a standstill here on what to do. Do you have a recommendation to us, Mr. Manzares?
It's this particular instance started, as I understand it, related to a complaint that was received by code enforcement. So it's in the code enforcement arena. Staff pursues code enforcement actions when complaints are made. If the council wishes to provide, as I said, a little bit more time for this property owner to come into compliance, we can certainly not pursue the code enforcement as aggressively. The other option is that the matter could be brought in front of the special magistrate, which at time the special magistrate is required to give them a reasonable time to come into compliance at that point. So, but really staff's position on it was we were moving forward with code enforcement unless council gives some direction otherwise.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I mean, I guess so no one likes the idea of saying, returning the applications. If they're not sufficient, returning the applications, then everyone needs to move off of the sites. And then if they can make complete application, then it'll be under review. But I think we've given everyone plenty of grace period for this. And I think even the city manager, correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about it like beginning of the year, and you were going to give them a notice that, because we said a reasonable amount of time, but we didn't say what, but it had been like a year. And so I think, did you send a letter out to say something?
We've been in complete contact with them
Yeah.
through the whole process and
So
notifying,
personally, I
working
think-
with. And
I think we just need to draw the line in the sand, say everybody's application goes back, here's your application fee. And when you have a sufficient application, we will start the process. And
I was just, and I don't know if Mr. Brew mentioned this, but it's my understanding that process is happening with several of the applications now, where they've been advised, here are the sufficiency issues or lack of sufficiency issues on your applications. You need to work on these and do that.
right, but I'm saying in the application, hand everything back and don't even take it in-house until it's a complete, sufficient application.
And just so if I may add, so after the meetings that we have with all of the food trucks, we gave them a time frame of 1 month to come into compliance and submit a sufficient packet before we start code enforcement action on every one of them. So there's already a mechanism in place for code enforcement for the ones that are currently operating as well.
When is 1 month?
We have differing, depending on when we had the meeting. David, do you have the specific? I think the staff report might have it.
David Bridle, Business Navigator. So we met with Yomo's Baked Potatoes on March 11th. We're currently working with them to, we actually had a meeting with them yesterday to try and get their documentation correct. They seem to be on board, so I think they'll be submitting very soon. Mr. Hotlinks, we met with on March 14th. He has apparently resubmitted this week, so that's in sufficiency review. Caribbean Limers has resubmitted as well. They've asked some questions of staff, and staff will be getting back with them for their application. March 14th was the Yummy Spot. The Yummy Spot and Yomo's Baked Potatoes are actually on the same lot. They operate at different times and days. So we're working with them as well as Yomo's Baked Potatoes to get their documentation correct. And Rito is the food truck that will be moving into Bonnie Lee's hopefully by May 4th, because we had a meeting with them on April 4th.
So how many are sufficient? 1?
I would say none are sufficient at this time, as we are currently working with them to get the proper documentation submitted back to us.
So with other processes in the city, if someone turned an incomplete application in, would you take it and start processing it and consider it turned into the city?
We have received documentation before for other projects, and we have submitted comments back saying we are looking for this information, please provide this. So we have done that in the past, yes. I think my only issue, if you do decide to turn back the applications and turn back the money, nobody will be able to operate. If we're going to go down that road with conditional uses, they would have to come back. They wouldn't be able to operate until council approves it.
So the protection.
The protection will go away because the application will go back to them. And they would have to start a whole new application.
Again, I feel like it's been a year plus that this has been going on. I feel like we've been, the longer we prolong it, then people get more, clientele, and then they say, I've been here a year, I think it just.
And that was the issue. We spoke about this in lengths, is that if we do let the new applicants start working towards, in 3 or 4 months down the road, they come in front of council and council denies it, then they've been operating for 3 or 4 months. They've been depending on the income for that entire time. So that's why we've been following the land development code and saying you can't operate until the conditional use is approved, just like any other business that would come in.
Councilmember Askew.
So food trucks are not allowed in the city of St. Cloud. They have to get their license, I would assume, from Osceola County. You can't come and get your license here. Tax dollars, they don't stay here. Do they go to Osceola County? Or I know some even have Orange County as their license. So how does that work?
I know the BTR, some businesses do list their home address as that. I know they do have to get licensing through the BPR. As far as where the tax dollars go, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Well, on the BTR piece, we would certainly take the position that if they have an approved conditional use permit on a particular location, that they would have our operation, so they'd have to have a city BTR.
And we've actually issued BTRs right away to 2 businesses. before the conditional use is approved.
Food trucks? Okay.
Remember, a business tax receipt isn't a zoning approval.
Right.
It's exactly just a tax.
So, where do we go from here? You know, to me, it's just frustrating. You know, if you require other businesses to fill out an application, get it approved before you start your business, you know, it seems to me that's where we ought to be with food trucks. And so you don't keep running down this road.
Right. I would agree with you.
So what do you want to give us a recommendation?
Nope.
Smart guy.
I'm just taking notes.
I gave mine. Nobody appears to like it.
Councilmember Askew.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could speak for businesses, and a food truck is a business just like any other business, and if they do get approved and the tax dollars stay right here in St. Cloud and we work out something, I personally don't mind giving them 3 months because it sounds like it's kind of a challenge on both sides. You know, and if this is his living, I knew we were going to kind of get into this, but if this is his living, I mean, I got to feel for his family and things like that. So as a business person, I feel that we should give something one way, but then in 3 months, it might not work. So Ms. Matheny brought up some valid points. You know, how do you do this if you can get the proper paperwork in? I think that it seems a little cleaner, but we really need to fix this. It just doesn't seem like it's functioning correctly, or I don't know. You guys seem like you're getting it down with this application, but I don't know what the answer is. You know, I don't mind giving somebody some extra time, but don't come back in 3 months and go, oh, I forgot to do the paperwork, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels. So.
I feel the same way. Just let's get this thing done in the next couple months and just be done with it.
Right. Easy for staff, easy for the business.
So if we do that, Mr. Manzares, what kind of action do we need to take?
Well, technically, the council can't take any action tonight. We're looking for some direction of how you want to handle it. I understand the comments that were made, but I would maybe ask the council to consider this the way you would any other business that starts to do business without the appropriate permit, whether it's food trucks or whether it's anything else. That's the struggle that staff has to deal with, especially on the code enforcement side. So when that happens from a code enforcement perspective, the operator of the business has two choices. They either address the code enforcement issues and go through that process, or they stop doing business until they get their appropriate permits. So if the council wants to provide some extra time, we certainly can take that as direction, and we can, as I said earlier, we can move through the process, but allow the extra time during that process. If the council chooses to provide no discretion, then really the staff's only choice is to pursue the code enforcement actions.
Councilmember Trace.
But I thought when we went through all this, statute changed to where we really can't enforce any of this, right? If they're mobile and they're moving around, it's just because they're kind of planting a flag in a spot that we're able to regulate them.
Without continuing the discussion into another part of it area, as you will recall, there was some difference of legislative interpretation with regard to that statute. We'd actually reached out to Representative Hawkins to ask if he could assist with that because we felt that there was a need to resolve that. The city currently doesn't allow for these type of trucks except with a special event permit, and that's when the conditional use permit came out of the option. As I recall, a long time ago, several months ago, maybe a couple of years ago, the discussion started about how can we permit or allow a certain amount of these food trucks to be regulated and exist, and that's where this conditional use permit process. So the long and short, I guess the short answer to all that is the current legislation is not clear as to whether a city can actually prohibit them. We believe it does say that. Other cities don't believe it says that. So it's just not clear out there. So the alternative was to create this process that would allow for those food trucks in the right locations to be able to operate with the right restrictions And that's when the CUP process was initiated. But I still think the answer, if the council doesn't provide any direction tonight, which if you're mixed on it, then we understand that, then staff will just pursue the same things we always do with any business. The business has an opportunity to apply for whatever permits it needs. They can go through that process, and if they start or continue to do business without the permit, then it's a code enforcement issue.
Okay, we got two options. You mentioned 3 months, huh?
Yeah, well, I
Still in
mean,
favor of that?
and it's because they were in the initial pool before, right? And then kind of the rug got pulled out from under them. They have to move locations. They try to figure that out for a couple of months, and then they find another spot and pop up again. So it's kind of, they were a part of the pool is kind of the take I'm getting on it, right? So just kind of give them some grace and see this thing through the finish line, and if, they don't get the conditional use approved.
If we
then-
grant this group here 3 months, does that mean everybody else that may have a problem at 3 months?
I think that's essentially what
Isn't that what
you're
you're doing?
providing that grace to everybody.
And by the way, no flashing lights on.
Yeah. I don't want to give any more extensions personally. I feel like we've extended. I mean, how long has it been since they came
February
before council?
21.
Yeah, we had this discussion when we were meeting in
Yeah.
the summer. But
So it's been over a year. I mean, I personally don't want
All
any
right.
more extensions.
Mr. Irvin, give me an answer.
I'm a little torn here because I understand where Deputy Mayor Matheny's coming from, but also like Councilmember Askew said, I have a heart for small businesses, and I know that it's to make a living for your family is important. So
You're going to extend it for 3 months, right?
yes, sir.
All right, that's easy done now. You guys already done something, I'll do the same. That'll be 4 of us.
all right, so
We're going to give you grace, so you need to get it resolved. You won't be giving this again, okay? And no more flashing lights. All right,
Thank you.
okay? Let's move on. Fanny Gonzalez.
Same thing. So I think she had the same concern. Food truck.
Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Fanny González. Yo trabajo para Borifongo 100 por 35. Tenemos un food truck. Él va a ser mi intérprete.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the translator.
Ok, estoy mayormente también por lo mismo de Flavor of Heaven. Nosotros sometimos los documentos en febrero 24.
We have like the same problem as Flavors of Heaven, the one that they just were here.
Yo tengo todos los documentos, la licencia, el business tax de San Cloud ya me llegó. Tengo todos los documentos.
Yeah, like we have all the applications, all the documents, like we have them here on paper.
Pagué los $900.
We paid the $900.
Y ayer me llegó un comunicado de que no podemos operar.
Yesterday we received like a notification that we cannot like operate on the place.
No entiendo la razón, si estamos en ley y tenemos todos los documentos solicitados por ustedes.
We don't understand like what's the law on that because we have like all the documents for the city.
Al igual que todo depende de mi familia para el sustento.
Like this sustains our family.
Y hay biles que pagar.
Like we have to pay bills.
Okay. Abysmal, do you have anything new to add to this?
Okay.
Is this basically the same situation?
Hey, Ismael Abreu, Strategic Initiative Analyst. It is the same premise, not being able to operate until the conditional use is approved. However, this is a brand new food truck that just got into the city, not part of the original 7. And they did submit an application for a conditional use back in February 22nd of this year. And so they're going through the process. However, it's then again the catch-22. So it's the same situation that the past gentleman mentioned, where they got shut down by code enforcement.
Here we are, aren't we?
But this one's different, though, because.
Yeah.
Just started.
Just starting, yeah, so.
Just starting.
Got to follow the rules.
And I'll just remind the council, again, it may not work for the people standing at the podium, but the easy solution to this is to stop doing business until you get your conditional use permit.
Councilmember Askew.
Thank you, Mayor. How do they get their conditional use permit?
Well, they've submitted an application, as was pointed out too. They're working through it. I think, David, this may be, I don't know if this is one of the ones that have had sufficiency issues and they're making comments back. It would seem like since it's been in since February, staff has probably already done its initial review and has probably already suggested what needs to be done. So it's in that process. And then once that process is done and staff can make a recommendation to City Council and come in front of the City Council, and City Council will have to consider it.
David Bridle, Business Navigator. Yes, they were in sufficiency review. We just now issued comments today. I think they sent out an email. I don't know if it's been officially sent back to them. I think one of the biggest comments I saw was that where they are locating is not actually on the same property of Andy's Tires. So they're not even operating on the current property. So that was one of the biggest issues from staff.
Okay. That's legit.
Okay. You have a word for us, Mr. Mayor?
Well, I guess the question for the council is, we went through the last one that just a few minutes ago. Do you want to treat this one the same way or not? And I know it's difficult, but, you know, the permit's required under the city code.
Councilmember Matheny.
I'll be the bad guy. We need to follow the process of the city. Us giving all these grace periods and things is just muddying the water. I think we need to follow the process of the city.
Are we in agreement? Are we in agreement? We're in agreement on that.
Thank you.
Right. So they'll need to comply with the code enforcement notice that they received until their permit is approved.
Can you get someone who speaks Spanish?
I can do that,
Pull them
yes.
aside and explain that to them.
Yes,
All right?
I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak during the citizens forum?
Thanks.
If not, we will move on to the consent agenda. The next portion of tonight's meeting is the consent agenda, which contains items that have been determined to be routine and non-controversial. If anyone in the audience wishes to address a particular item on the consent agenda, now is the opportunity for you to do so. Additionally, if staff or members of the City Council wish to speak on a consent item, they have the same opportunity. Mr. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull item C, Charlie, for discussion with council.
We're pulling item C for discussion. Do we have any other? Councilmember Matheny?
Item J for discussion.
And item J?
J.
Mr. Sturgeon?
Yes,
Item
thank you.
number C.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council, if you recall, at the CRA meeting last Thursday, we had a discussion as the CRA board and talked about signage. And we talked about signage in the CRA, and then the wayfinding, we talked about that tonight. If I recall, Deputy Mayor Matheny talked about refurbishing our signs around the city. And so I'd like direction from the council. Let's go ahead and, this contract is for the materials to make the signs, but go ahead and, we got our rebranding, and just go ahead and look around the city and start replacing those signs. Some, I've been driving around the last couple of days, they do need to be replaced. There are requirements, statutory requirements for those, but I'd like to bring back a color palette and what that looks like to the council in the next couple of meetings and get direction, and we can start replacing those signs.
Awesome. Any discussion, any objections? I think that's a great idea. I think we have a consensus from the,
All right,
from the
thank
council
you.
on that.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Item,
Sorry, I do have a
Councilmember
comment.
Trace?
Did that include adding the logo to it or just changing color palette?
I'd like to bring back some examples, Mr. Trace, including colors and the logo.
Okay. And then in the CRA versus citywide, or are we going to make that decision? I know some cities do, like in downtown districts or CRAs, they do different.
We have a task force that's looking at the wayfinding sign and the sign for the downtown as we do the different, phase 2 and how we redo those signs. But yes, this would be for the entire city. Like I said, start with what the legal requirements are to place certain signs, and then also new developments require them to put those signs in.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Matheny, item J.
Thank you. So this item J is for the city manager to negotiate with 7 different qualified professional planning and landscaping architectural firms. I would like to make a motion to approve this, but I want to add that the city manager can execute the negotiated contracts, and it doesn't have to come back to us. The reason why is just we've got a laundry list of planning activities that we're behind on, so I don't want to add another step to this approval to add 3 more months to just get the contracts in place. Obviously, when contracts are written and negotiated, those will come back individually. But this is just to get the continuing contracts in place. The city manager and the attorney, I talked to them about it. They're comfortable with it, so that's my motion.
Mr. Rosaris?
Yes, and I just add that the one thing that's unique about this particular one is there were 7 responses to the RFQ that was out there, and so the recommendation is for all 7.
Yes.
So basically, everybody that responded is going to end up with a contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion, and if you'll just state your motion again.
It's the approval of item number J, but adding that the city manager can sign the negotiated contracts, and they do not need to come back to city council.
Second. We have a second from Councilmember Askew. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Does this require assuming a vote?
Yes.
Roll call vote, right?
Yes.
Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us back to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace for, or was that Askew? I'm sorry, Councilmember Askew for approval of the consent agenda minus item J. And we have a second from Councilmember Matheny. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
That brings us to our next item, public hearings. Madam Clerk, will you read items 1 and 2?
Final public hearings for ordinance number 2022-07, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, assigning a future land use designation of private institutional to approximately 4.84 acres identified as Panate Park, located on Old Canoe Creek Road, south of Mesa Verde Drive and north of Mutter Road, providing for amending the official future land use map of the comprehensive plan, filing of the Planning Commission, recommendation and proof of publication, applicability and effects, severability, copies on file, and effective date. Final public hearing for ordinance number 2022-08, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, providing for the zoning amendment of the zoning map of the Land Development Code of City of St. Cloud, Florida, specifically changing the zoning designation of approximately 4.84 acres identified as Panate Park from a single-family district R-E to a professional P zoning designation with a private institutional future land use designation adopted by ordinance number 2022-07, generally located on Old Canoe Creek Road and south of Mesa Verde Drive and north of Mutter Road, providing for entering the designation of the official zoning map, filing of the Planning Commission, recommendation and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date.
Good evening, Council Member Dagmary Segarra, Planning Manager, Community Development. The first case I'm presenting tonight is the Comprehensive Plan Amendment for Panate Park. The property consists of approximately 4.84 acres and is generally located east of Old Canoe Creek Road and south of Mesa Verde. Currently, the future land use of the property is low-density residential with a current zoning of RE, single-family dwelling. The proposed future land use is a private institutional with the proposed zoning as a professional. These changes are not compatible with the surrounding areas. However, they pose no adverse impact on the city facilities. The request meets the intent of the strategic goal of growth management. On October 15, 2021, DRC reviewed the case and recommended denial. On 2/15/2021, Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions. On first reading, this is not working, sorry. On first reading, City Council approved a motion with a motion of approval, and at this time it is, sorry, I went ahead too fast, okay. And at this request that the City Council recommend denial of Ordinance 2022-07 based upon the 16 findings of the Land Development Code. The next presentation is for the amendment to the zoning map. The request is a zoning map amendment for Pennant Park. The property consists of 8.4 acres and is located east of Old Canoe Creek and south of Mesa Verde Drive. The future land use, as I stated before, is low-density residential with a current zoning of RE, single-family residence. The proposed zoning of professional with the future land use of private institutional is not compatible with the surrounding areas, but poses not adverse impact on city facilities. It meets the intents of the strategic goal of growth management. And again, on 10/15, DRC recommended denial. On 2/15/21, Planning Commission recommended approval with conditions, and I should say 12/15/2022, not 2021. And on first reading, the City Council approved a motion for approval with conditions, and it is requested that the Council recommend denial of Ordinance 2022-08 based on the 16 findings of development. The applicant is in attendance tonight, and I'm available, and they're available, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to this item?
Yes, please.
Items.
Good evening, James Mangan, 2728 13th Street. I'm going to try to make this quick. Since our last council meeting, we've gone back and forth with city staff to establish a list of uses from the professional office designation that are going to be restricted via deed restriction to be placed on the property. These restrictions are as follows: no cemeteries, community centers, drugstores, college or universities, public or private schools, vocational schools, hospitals and nursing homes, museums, cultural institutions, golf courses, gun ranges, libraries, parks, parkways, and playgrounds, places of worship, play fields, and restaurants, any type of restaurants. So we will, upon conclusion of the city council meeting, we will record a deed restriction that will restrict those uses. In addition, we are still in agreement with maintaining the 50-foot natural landscape buffer, the 6-foot tall fence on top of the berm with a viburnum hedge facing Mesa Verde and Lake Trudy. And we'd just like to reserve the rest of our time to answer any questions from the council or the neighborhood. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
This time we'll receive public comment. Robert Stein. Please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Robert Stein, 4707 Mesa Verde Drive. I'm not even sure what to say to you guys, except you won't have to hear from me again, I guess. Deputy Mayor, last time that I was here, you, on another matter, said something that was really enlightening to me, and that was that you really had a hard time voting for something that you didn't know what it was you were going to get. And that's exactly where the neighbors are, and where I would say that you guys are still. we don't really know what we are going to be getting from this. Now, the applicant has agreed to a number of things, the 50-foot natural buffer, maintaining the large trees around the perimeter, the building to be a minimum of 65 to 70 feet from our backyards, the 50 feet natural buffer with a 5 to 10 foot berm, a minimal yard of 5 feet and sidewalks of 5 feet, and then buildings. The single-story buildings with a residential feature character, the hedge to cover a neutral colored fence, no lighting that will travel off-site, quiet at nights after 6 p.m. and on weekends, restricted to professional, clinical, medical, and/or dental offices, and 2 additional ones that had been talked about was it placing retention on the side facing the houses to try to increase the setback if possible, and the traffic study. And Member Tracy, you had a brilliant idea that instead of even considering a left-hand turn lane, I would look at putting in the traffic light at Mutter Road. That makes so much more sense. All of these things were agreed to by the applicant in the 16 findings. I sent quite a long, lengthy email to each of you referencing, where it was in that. And then I tried to, because I realized it was rather unwieldy and nobody was going to be able to use that in a meeting, kind of bring that back and make a little more concise list of the 8 things plus the 2 additional items. So none of the neighbors want any development back there. The neighborhoods of Pine Lake Estates, Anthem Park, Natchez Trace all signed petitions saying that they don't want any development back there. And your parks person was interested in developing a trail back there, but I've yet to hear back from Stephanie. So I don't know where that lands with that. But I would ask that you, if you're going to approve this, that you include these 8 or 10 items as conditional. And I think doing the restriction for professional, clinical, medical, and/or dental makes a whole lot more sense than listing out 45 different items that it can't be. Just say it can only be these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this item? Would the applicant like to speak to anything that was brought up?
James Mangan, 2728 13th Street. Just kind of recapping what we went through last council meeting is, I think it's, while we sympathize with them, we understand that they don't want any development there. It is private property, and it will be developed at some point by somebody as something. There's just no way around it. It's an infill location. We would ask that the council approves the zoning and land use as we have discussed with staff. Those restrictions are from the list of uses off of the land development code. And we would ask that we just stay consistent with what we've discussed previously. Those uses, the 50-foot setback, keeping the natural landscape buffer, the berm, the fence, and the viburnum hedge facing the 2 streets. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. At this point, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. What is the consideration of the council? Any discussion? Councilmember Trace.
I didn't think you guys would want me to go first, but I'm still not in favor of it, and I will still be voting no on it. But I just kind of want to throw out one thing for consideration, that the whole turn lane thing, there's a turn lane just north of this and just south of this, and also one at Mutter Road. I'd really like to see a traffic signal put in at Mutter and Capitol. There's a lot of unsafe turns. Luckily, I think the construction in that neighborhood's done, so there's no big flatbeds or anything coming in and out of there, so that's a little better. But I'd be fine if they put in that traffic signal to reimburse half of it or something with mobility fees, which I just did a rough calculation. I don't have the new mobility fees, but if they did the 37,000 square feet, which is from memory, I think that's what you guys were having on there, it's about $243,000 worth of transportation impact fees, which is probably about half of the signal. So we'd kind of, give credit for that. I appreciate the deed restrictions and the changes that you guys have been made with respect to the citizens' concerns. I just don't think it's the right spot.
Councilmember Askew.
I would throw a support for the light on Mutter Road. If I can get some more counsel and we can direct the city manager, that would be fantastic. Or at least look at it.
Councilmember Thiene.
Thank you. Signals have to be warranted, so just because
Just, yeah,
you
look at
want
it.
one doesn't mean you can have one. I mean, so it's definitely, it would have to be analyzed, and I think that's a county road, right?
It's a county road. That's what I'm saying.
And it has to be warranted.
Right.
So, I
At
mean, I
least
would
look into it.
support the question, but I don't think we can say.
I also want Mutter to go all the way through, but
Right.
that's a
I don't think we can
conversation.
say you have to put a signal there because it has to be
it's not our-
warranted.
No, that's not what the intent. The intent was to give support to the city manager to at least look into it, and if it's something warranted, obviously it's not our road, so.
We'll work with the county to get the warrant study done and then come back and tell you what the results are. And then, like I said, talk about funding and getting the light installed.
Awesome.
Councilmember Urban.
Thank you. So I definitely sympathize with Mr. Stein and the neighbors' concerns here, and I understand where they're coming from, but as the applicant stated, something's going to be developed there, and I think that the applicant has definitely made reasonable accommodations, and I think that this would definitely be better than what could possibly be put there. So with that, I would make the motion for approval with the conditions set forth.
So you're making a motion for the adoption, first of all, of ordinance number 2022-07?
Yeah,
Yes,
to be
sir.
clear, the conditions would be on the next item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'll give that a second, but also with comment. We've looked at this, listened to all the arguments, pros and cons. I really think the Planning Commission got it right. When you sit down and listen what would be the best use of this property, it's certainly, the developer certainly has a right to develop this property. And I think the Planning Commission certainly got it right. What I've been, having sat here for 7 years almost, I've been amazed at all the conditions that the applicant's been willing to adhere to. It's like he's gone the second mile to accommodate the neighborhood, the community, and he's agreed to a lot of things, and I certainly just would urge approval of this motion that has been presented. At this time, I will ask the clerk if you'll please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Nay.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Brings us to the next item, ordinance number 2022-08. We have discussion and our motion by council.
Make a motion for approval with the conditions from the Planning Commission.
We have a motion for the approval of ordinance 2022-08. I'll give that a second.
And that's with the requirement and the deed restrictions as well?
With it, yes, with the requirement for this.
And
Let's back up here.
you also want to say, look into the signal, or is that on
I
city
think we-
dollars?
I'm good with that.
I do have a question. I think we asked this before, but I'm not hearing it mentioned tonight. Was they provided renderings of what the buildings would look like, and we had talked about including that in the approval?
Would the applicant like to speak to that?
James Mangan, 2728 13th Street. So yes, the intent is to do a residential look and feel to it. And so I think we would be fine if you wanted to add some sort of language that would state that it would have pitched roofs to give it that kind of feel and that character. And so yes, we did bring pictures as examples of the type of buildings we intend to construct. Correct.
Maybe we can get our folks that are going to have to review and approve it to tell us what language to include.
Well, the easiest,
Not just-
I know we saw some pictures.
It's not sound like he wants to include those. That's what I just said.
Well, what you have done in the past is in some of these things, you've had put some language in it that says the buildings, the
similar.
elevations will be like substantially similar to or in accordance
okay
with
with
the
that?
pictures.
Yeah, we're good with that.
Okay,
We're good.
perfect.
Yeah.
That at least gives you a design idea of what they're going to look like.
When it comes to a light situation, they have to have a traffic study. They got to do whatever a traffic study says, do they not?
It has to be warranted.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Mazzara?
Yeah, just one quick thing, and for Mr. Urban's motion, he referenced the Planning Commission, but the list of the restricted items was not from the Planning Commission. That came up at the introduction, so I just want to make sure we understood that that's going to be part of this too.
Yes, I would like to include that list as well.
All right. Do we have any other discussion?
And with the
Madam
language
Clerk,
that
please call the roll.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Brings us to item number 3, Madam Clerk.
Final public hearing for ordinance number 2022-17, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, prescribing the manner of holding the regular election to be held on the first Tuesday after the first Monday of November each election year, to wit, November 8, 2022, with a primary election on August 23, 2022, if required pursuant to Chapter 20, Article 1, Section 20 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of St. Cloud, providing for an effective date.
Do we have any discussion? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Do we have any discussion or motion by council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Matheny, a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
I just want to make a note here. We are moving forward on the residential clarification in the upcoming election that will be on the ballot. Is that not correct?
We have to bring back an ordinance to the City Council for approval, and if you approve that ordinance, it will be on the ballot.
Thank you.
It's going to designate like who's responsible to investigate that.
It's not, we haven't put that into the proposed ordinance yet.
Because I think part of the, sorry, Mayor, I think part of the issue we had previously was everybody did this. So, I mean, I would like it to be part of, when someone makes application to run, that someone is assigned to check residency requirements, not being based on a complaint. I mean, I think that was the issue we had previously, was somebody had to make a formal complaint for anybody to look into it.
Right.
And
So is that something we can put in our ordinance?
we can put that into the ordinance, and we can figure out a way to address it. This will be a little different as I'm thinking forward, because this will be an additional restriction that is in the city code, if it's in the city charter, if it's approved, which would by then put the onus on the city to enforce it, unlike in the prior.
So like the supervisor election would have like a box that we like get confirmation from the city that this meets residency requirements? Like
Yes.
when they
Not-
turn their paperwork in?
Yeah, not just the whether they are a resident, but when they became a resident.
Right, okay.
I think we've got a consensus on that. Item number 4.
First public hearing for ordinance number 2022-21, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending the signage development standards for the PUD retail center established in ordinance number 2003-68 as amended, an ordinance which assigned a zoning designation of Planned Unit Development, PUD, to Stevens Plantation located south of Nolte Road, east of Lafayette Trace Drive, and west of Canoe Creek Road, providing for filing of the Planning Commission recommendation and proof of publication, suburbility, and effective date.
Good evening again, Dagmar Segarra, Planning Manager. The case I'm presenting tonight is a PUD amendment for the Stephen Rito's Plaza sign. The property consists of approximately 8.84 acres and is generally located south of Nolte, east of Lafayette Trace Drive, and west of Canoe Creek Road. The future land use of this property is medium-density residential with the current zoning of planned unit development. The proposed text amendment to the signage development standards is compatible with the surrounding areas and possesses no adverse impacts into city facilities. This request meets the intent of the strategic goal of growth management and infrastructure. Sorry, just the growth management, sorry. On February 24th, 2022, the DRC and staff review and recommended approval. On March 15, 2022, Planning Commission also recommended approval based on the 16 findings of the Land Development Code. It is requested of this board or the City Council to vote and approve Ordinance 2020-2221 based upon the 16 findings of the Land Development Code. The applicant is here in attendance tonight and available for answer any questions, and staff as well.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
That's it. Well,
Abismal Abreu, City of St. Cloud, acting as the applicant on behalf of the city. I just wanted to go over some few things. This item is to be in compliance with a current sale purchase or sale contract that we had for that the DSD owned these parcels over there in Stephen Retail Center. So the city is just doing the due diligence, trying to close out that contract, the stipulation that the city continues this process. And I also would like to recommend on behalf of the city, since the city no longer owns these parcels and we're just simply required to do the PUD amendment change to allow for a plaza sign, we shouldn't be designing the location of the signage for the applicant. The applicant and the board of the commercial HOA, whatever they have set up there, I don't know the specific legal term, they should be the one deciding where this plaza sign should better be located, not us as the city. So as it's currently presented to you, and I passed around with the help of our city clerk's staff, passed around kind of like a little overview of what language is the one that I'm referring to that shouldn't be included. Since this is the first reading of this ordinance, we still have some time to make some changes. So I have added two things. The highlighted in red, it's just a statement to address the issue that there's already a dental office on premises that currently has a monument sign. So some just protection for that individual, since he already developed, the business owner already developed prior to this going forward. In case that his signage gets damaged, they have the ability to come up and build as a legal non-conforming sign. And the other part, which is section D there that I scratched off, marked through, is the location of the plaza sign. I would recommend that language be striked and have the developer actually put the proposed sign location using just the already given setback restrictions instead of the city imposing the location. Those are my recommendations for changes on this.
First of all, would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion by council. Councilmember Matheny.
4, 5, 6, and 7 are all merged, or 6 and 7 are merged? Is it all one owner for all 4 of those lots?
Lot 1, lot 2, 4, and 5 is one owner. Lot 6 and 7 merge, and they're owned by a separate person, and then lot 3 is a separate. So there's 3 different owners.
Because I'm wondering if we don't say where the sign goes, so can all the property owners say, not on my property? Like, is that a possibility? Like, who's going to have the sign on their property, I guess, is the question, if we don't say where it is or designate it? Is that potentially an issue?
If we move forward with this recommendation, then the back lots will not be able to have their own signage on their property, which is not a building, Nolte Road. So that's something that has to be addressed with the local HOA.
Well, no. What I'm saying is the lots that front Nolte Road.
Okay.
Who owns those? Are those the same
So the
owners?
lots
Or are
that-
those two different owners?
That's the same owner that,
So lots 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And 4 and 5.
Do you have a map of the numbers?
Yeah, so I think you're right, but this is the first time we've had a
Sure.
chance to look at
That's
this.
just a thought I had. If you
Yeah.
don't
I
designate
think
where
we
the
need to
sign
address
goes,
that. I
is
think-
everybody going to say, put it on Colby's property,
Our
not on mine?
discussions with the entity that bought that property, EMF of Winter Park, they understand and recognize, since they own the 2 back lots,
Mhm.
that the only way that those 2 back lots essentially have any signage is if they accommodate the signage on their front 2 lots.
Sure.
So there's an inherent need for them to work to make sure that there's a sign there. Otherwise, as Bismail pointed out, those lots in the back don't have any signage. However, I think it's a good point that we would like the opportunity between now and the final adoption to sort of address that issue, so we can maybe make a little clearer to make sure that it doesn't become a problem, which I think we can do.
Right. And then my second comment is, does the Stevens Plantation area have a look to their signs? And so we're going to say we want the monument sign to fit in with the flavor of Stevens Plantation? Because I think all of the signs, you live in the neighborhood, I feel like they all look similar. So it's like, don't you want this to be of the same look?
if that is a recommended language
They
that
really
we
aren't.
we
They're all
can.
different. Every sign into every subdivision is different.
Okay, they're not all like stone or this or that. I guess, do you want to say something that it needs to harmonize with the area or something, so it's not, you know,
There are architectural standards for the retail
Mhm.
piece, which is where, for all 7 of those lots there. I don't, off the top of my head, know whether they
But
address
just a thought,
signage.
like maybe see if we need to put something in there about it needs to blend in with you don't want something garish to go in there.
Actually, the PUD Section 10 has a language that there is a master signage plan as part of the final master plan for the PUD retail that provides a coordinated appearance for the on-site sign located on West Nolte and Canyon Creek. So there's already language in the PUD back from 2013 or 2003, sorry, that addresses your concerns.
Do you want to reference that in here, that consistent with the 2013 PUD or something?
I would ask if I could, Deputy Mayor,
Look
that
into
we
it.
take it, and since this isn't, you're not going to
Sure.
adopt it finally tonight, let us do that before we start trying to put language in it without.
Yeah, that's
having to
fine.
do.
Those are just my 2 concerns.
Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. My concerns with the scale of the sign, 15-foot sign is a very tall sign. And even the neighborhood Walmart on the corner only has a 6 or 8 foot tall sign on the 2 sides. So I'd like this reduced to 6 or 8 feet or something of that scale, because there's no signs that are that tall
Right.
in that community.
That's what I mean, like kind of blend with the.
Yeah. So the height, and then on the square footage, it said 96 square feet. Is that 96 square feet of copy area on each side, or is that total?
Total.
Total, okay. So that's like 5 foot by 10 foot on both sides. Doesn't seem like a lot of copy area to fit a blade for all 6 parcels. And especially if someone does a multi-tenant building, they'll have 2 or 3 sign blades per. So I'm fine with more copy area but smaller height.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's it.
That's part of the problem you run into if you start reducing the height. You're going to end up starting reducing the copy they can go.
I think you will be very
Staff
upset
needs
if
to
you
take
get a
look at that.
15-foot tall sign
Well, I
sign in
want it
there.
to be 15 foot, but.
And
Let
one
the
thing that I
staff
also
work on
want
that.
to mention, just keep in mind with the reducing of the size, there's also a large berm in the front of lot 1 that could be a little bit of an obstacle for the signage if it's placed on the property. So just keep in mind that as well. Some of the restrictions that the site has.
Councilmember Askew.
Can we, before the next reading, can we take a look at whatever Walmart sign is and the height to that and try to emulate that? Yeah, I'm looking at our ceiling going 15 feet, that's like way up there. Good point.
And I think we'll also reach out to the owner of those 4 lots now and get a feel for what they think that where they and what they intend to do, if we haven't already.
That would be good.
They gave the go-ahead
I know.
for us to move forward, so that's why I'm here.
With 15 foot, but so.
So do you need anything else from us at this point?
No, I think we got good
So,
information.
I just need refresher. So before the second final hearing, we would like to see a reduced size from 6 to 8 feet.
Well, so I found, this is a 2003, one of the Stevens Plantations ordinances, and it had a maximum 8 feet above finished grade from
8
the
feet.
road, and a maximum of 24 square feet for the name of the shopping center, and a maximum of 40 square feet for names of anchor stores. And I think each access was allowed one sign, so I'm fine with more than the 96 square feet, as long as it's total, or 96 square feet on one side, because that'd be about 5, if we allow 8 feet, it'd probably be 6 feet. So if it's 5 foot of copy area by 20 foot long, would be about 100 square feet per side, so.
And then the second was to emulate the Walmart standards.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, I think I have it.
Do we have any other discussion?
Well, I wanted it to harmonize with the area. That was my comment, and I also wanted it to figure out where it's gonna go, or if that needs to be figured out before it comes back for second reading, so that there's not a fight over where the sign goes.
So are there any objections to that? No. Mr. Manzares, add that to your, your list.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need a motion here?
We need a
for
motion
that?
to approve first reading.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Trace, second from Councilmember Askew. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
Aye.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Item number 5.
First reading and introduction for ordinance number 2022-26, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, amending Chapter 36, Solid Waste, Article 2, Collection and Disposal, authorizing and creating a requirement for a franchise for private entities to provide roll-off containers for the collection of Class 5 or 4 and the Class 6 solid waste by amending the renumbering sections 36 through 46, enforcement and adding section 46 through 47, franchise required, sections 36-48, applications, sections 36 through 49, operating requirements, sections 36 through 50, assigning sections 36 through 51, bankruptcy and insolvency, sections 36 through 52, franchise considerations, sections 36 through 53, franchise agreement requirements, sections 36 through 55, enforcement, and sections 36 through 56, appeals and providing for severability, conflict, administrative corrections, codification, and providing an effective date.
Good evening. Don Edwards, Public Works Director. This ordinance establishes the framework for a solid waste franchise fee for the City of St. Cloud for private solid waste companies that sell their services using roll-off containers and dumpsters for shorter-term uses. Mainly impacts commercial solid waste pickup, open-top roll-off, containers at construction sites, such as at subdivisions. The City of Kissimmee and Osceola County already have similar franchise agreements in place. Franchisee will apply to provide services in the City of St. Cloud. Applicants will pay 15% of gross revenue to the City of St. Cloud as part of this agreement, which will provide additional revenue to help minimize future collection rate increases, assist with equipment replacement program, and help minimize solid waste overtime cost. Establishes enforcement policies through the code enforcement process, does not apply to commercial dumpsters, should not apply to small construction companies that bring construction and demolition debris directly to the transfer station. It's my recommendation that this be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion and a motion by council. Have any questions? Councilmember Matheny?
That last bullet should say does not apply, correct?
Does not apply.
Does not apply.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
not permissive.
Should sounds like maybe. I'll make a motion to approve.
Councilmember Trace?
Oh, well, I'll second it, but I just wanted to point out that we checked, and the fee that we're charging is the same as City of Kissimmee and Osceola County, just to be consistent.
Yes, we did.
Perfect, thank you. So I'll second.
So we have a motion from Councilmember Matheny and a second from Councilmember Trace. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to council action item number 1.
Resolution number 2022-037R, a resolution of the City Council of the City of St. Cloud, Florida, prescribing the date of the election, the primary election if necessary, the office to be voted for, the nomination period for candidates, and the precinct locations.
Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Do we have discussion and a motion by council?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion from Councilmember Askew. I'll make
Second.
a second. The mayor made a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Brings us to items 2 and 3. Madam Clerk?
Request City Council's approval of the Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1A East Preliminary Subdivision Plan. Request City Council's approval of the Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1A West Preliminary Subdivision Plan.
Good evening again. Dagmary Segarra, Planning Manager. The case I'm presenting this evening is the preliminary subdivision plan for Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1A East. The applicant is requesting approval for a preliminary subdivision plan to construct 295 residential units, 179 detached, 116 attached, to be constructed in 2 phases. The subject property is located south of Starline Drive, west of Sunline Court, and north of Hackney Road and Ralph Miller Road. The property is approximately 99.82 acres with a zoning of mixed use and a future land use of mixed use. This request meets the intent of the strategic plan goal and growth management. Staff reviewed the application and recommended approval with the following conditions. The applicant must revise the plans to provide an 8-foot path that to be consistent with the development package provided. Typical section and details that will add ADA accessibility, pedestrian access to the ponds and any areas that would count as open space. And if to clarify on the size of the sidewalks along the Street 8 and cross sections that were provided on sheet 6. Also, the applicant needs to revise the plan in order to classify the easement along the south property line as open space. They need to provide a sidewalk that would run through the tract and connect to Street C sidewalk system. This is part of the revisions to accommodate the revisions that are required of accessibility and open space. And it is requested of City Council to approve the Center Lake Phase N1 PSP, Preliminary Subdivision Plan, with the conditions listed by staff. The applicant is here, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. And the applicant has agreed to all of the conditions by staff.
Would the applicant like to speak to this?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Heather Isaacs, and I'm the Director of Forward Planning for Taylor Morrison. And the address is 2600 Lake Lucian Way, and that is in Maitland, Florida. We have worked with staff over the past several months, and we appreciate all of the work that we've done to get us to this point tonight. We do agree with staff's recommendation and the conditions in the staff report, and we're here to answer any questions. I do have our civil engineer here as well in case you've got any technical questions.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? If not, we'll have discussion or motion, questions by council. Do we have any discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion for the approval by Mr. Askew, a second by Councilmember Urban. This is for the East Preliminary Subdivision side. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Askew.
Aye.
Councilmember Trace.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny.
No.
Councilmember Urban.
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Would you like to speak to the west side?
Request City Council's approval for the Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1A West Preliminary Subdivision Plan.
Good evening again, Dagmar Segarra, Planning Manager. The case I'm presenting this evening is a preliminary subdivision plan for Center Lake Ranch Phase N-1A West. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary subdivision plan to construct 562 detached residential units to be constructed in 2 phases. The subject property is located south of Starline Drive, west of Sunlight Court, north of Hackney Road and Ralph Miller Road. The property is approximately 164.23 acres with a zoning of mixed use and future land use of mixed use. The request meets the intents of this growth management, strategic goals of growth management. DRC recommendation is to approve the preliminary subdivision plan with the following conditions. The plans needs to be revised on the west side pond to show ADA accessibility to the pond. The section should be revised to indicate how the path will be incorporated into the slope of the pond bank and whatever it provided. The plan needs to be revised to demonstrate connectivity into the easements along the south property line on the open space and pedestrian connectivity with the sidewalk through the open space to connect to 12 Oak Road sidewalk system and to connect to either Hackney Road or the ADA access around the stormwater pond. This is the open space and requirements that we are requesting these conditions. And it's requested from City Council to approve the preliminary subdivision plan for N1A West with the conditions listed by staff. The applicant is here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this item? Would the applicant like to speak to this item?
Thank you. Heather Isaacs again. Just wanted to, again, thank staff for their time and effort on this, and thank you for your time tonight, and we agree with staff's recommendation and the conditions, and we're here to answer any questions.
Councilmember Matheny.
Thank you. I had a meeting actually with the applicant, and for the record, but during that meeting, I think it was that meeting, yeah, and not my agenda review, but it was mentioned that somewhere along the review process, somebody, I don't know if it was internal staff or the planning commission or something, talked about converting that access in the northwest corner to like a full access. I just want to make sure that's not on the table because we had lots and lots and lots of conversation with the residents and promised that that's emergency access only. Just want to confirm that that is not anything other than emergency access.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Jason Miller, Fire Chief. That was actually me that brought that up. For interconnectivity, due to our fire station, that location, we're looking at ways to potentially get up more towards the north. So having that road dedicated as a potential future growth model that could be widened to a full intersection road was my idea. However, we have come up with an alternative option to that, which is a little further to the east and actually runs some frontage. This would be on the west property boundary of the ranch property. Actually can tuck behind, I believe that's Starline Drive, and tie in that way. That'll allow us that opportunity to tie in where our fire station is, directly to Jones Road, which would help with some response time issues we'll see in the future up there.
I guess I'd look to Mr. Manzares, but I mean, it is emergency access is what we agreed, so can't the fire truck use it?
Well, the problem would be we'd have to slow down, open a gate, get through the gate, get up onto Starline, then out to Nartusi.
You're not high tech and can't open it like a garage door?
Not running at 40 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour.
I don't know how that
I'm
works.
just looking at alternative ways to get
Sure.
up to that Jones Road corridor, which eventually, as you know, the ranch is technically in the city.
Yes.
And when we're looking at fire protection in that area, having some interconnectivity from this development straight up that way. If the council would love to commit to that section along the ranch property, that would make me even happier. I was just looking at ways not to impact that.
I guess from my position is we committed to not do that, and that was in the approval whenever that was. So I don't know if I just wanted to bring it up that was mentioned in my meeting, and I was like, whoa, we promised that was going to be emergency access only, and so just throwing it out there. And do we have? I mean, can we? If the council so wanted to do it, could you go back on the commitments that were previously made?
On that one, you probably could go back on that one, whether you want to or not, obviously.
Can I have Ms. Stirk step up and talk about this for a second? Because we kind of worked on this one together as far as running through the ranch property there.
Yes, you may.
Mayor, if it's okay, can we get a map of that too?
Do we have a map of that?
Between those two ponds there in the top left corner.
Okay.
Yeah, so the conceptual master plan right now provides a limitation for emergency access only. So if there was a plan to convert that to full access, that would require a conceptual master plan amendment. So as stated now, the condition to allow the conversion to full access would not be permissible by the conceptual master plan. So the plan right now, the subdivision plan that they have is consistent with the conceptual master plan. It's going to include a gate there, and they don't have any desire to make that a full access, is my understanding. So if the council agrees that condition to consider it as full access, it would be in violation of the conceptual master plan currently. So, but what Jason is speaking about, the opportunities to connect to the north, is the things that we can do with mobility fee credits. The Center Lake Ranch property has entitlements for their full development program, and their traffic study demonstrated that they do not need that connection up to Jones Road. But again, we've talked about it before. When the tri-party agreements came forward, the ranch property is literally the only piece of land in between this property and the subdivision north of the ranch property. They've built their framework street connection, and if this council was in support of incentivizing that project to get built, potentially if there were developers that wanted to do that work, we could provide mobility fee credits. Our comprehensive plan and our mobility fee ordinances would allow for that. So that's something we'd like to learn from you all, is if you would like to see that move forward, and possibly if the developers would like to construct that when they construct the rest of the roads. They have some site development plans in now for the 12 Oak Roads improvements that terminate right there where you see them at the north end of this, but we're literally one segment away. And I guess our fear is that that's a county road, and if we don't get it done now, they might never come back and build it. So we have some opportunities with these credits, and if there was value added to the projects, there's an opportunity to partner on that.
Councilmember Matheny.
So I maybe I'm not understanding but you've got the road that runs north-south right on the edge of the colored part of the map?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the road you're talking about extending up to Starline?
Not to Starline.
Isn't that Starline right there?
No, and I don't know which one of these. Which one's the middle? With the pointer? Okay. Oh, there. Okay, so this is the location of the emergency access only.
Correct.
Starline Drive comes around here,
Uh-huh.
and it terminates into a cul-de-sac right here, and there's private property in between this connection of 12 Oaks Road and Starline Drive. So there, because this is a rural enclave, there will never be a connection from Starline Drive, well, unless something changes with, through a public process, from Starline Drive through to 12 Oaks Road. But there's an opportunity to get to the north here. And because we now own that property, when these conceptual master plans were developed, we did not, we can give that right-of-way that would allow them to do that work. So
And it would not tie into Starline?
it would not tie into Starline. There's
Okay.
two lots.
Because I was going to say, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If it just, the map isn't complete, so I don't know what it looks like over there.
But again, just to reiterate, it's not an obligation of the developer to this traffic study and the agreements that are in place to build that road. So if you all wanted to see that connection come to fruition, which provides that alternative connectivity to the north-south Narcousie Road, which is constrained, then that would be 100% mobility fee creditable. And I understand that the county is not interested in pursuing that, so that would be something that you all would need to give us direction to pursue if you want it. And we'd have to have a developer that actually wanted to do the work as well. If not, we can come back later and try to fund it through a capital improvements project whenever it's at the top of the list.
Anything else for Councilmember Matheny?
Andy?
Do you have anything else?
Yes, sir. Just again, the whole intent behind this is to get some access up there to Jones Road for future annexations. This is something that if the 12 Oaks Road is extended through the ranch property and ties into Jones Road right there along that western boundary of the ranch, that we'd be 100% in favor of that, which would have obviously less impact on the residents of that area. This is all about, fire department response and response times to provide coverage. At the present time, we don't have a fire station there, but when we do, we would like to see this road in place to help us out.
Councilmember Matheny?
Thank you. One last question. Is the spacing, and maybe the civil engineer will have to answer, but the spacing of the ponds that's shown on this plan, is it sufficient that a road could fit through there without modification of the pond? I'm just thinking I'm not prepared to do anything today, but I don't want them to possibly dig the pond and then you have to go fill it and modify South Florida permits and all that stuff. Is it sufficiently spaced? If it were to turn into a full access road in the future?
Heather Isaacs again. He's checking the plans that he has to see if it's dimensioned. Right now, we had planned on putting a 20-foot stabilized paved access there, but I believe that there is at least 50 feet. If it's not 50 feet, it's very close.
So you could put, within 50 feet, you could put in the future if it was, I think there's a lot of things up in the air right now. We committed to not make that connection be open to the public, but at least if it's laid out in a way that it could be revisited in the future if you had to.
Councilmember Trace?
Thank you. So I don't support the connection to Starline. I think it's necessary in the near future to make that 12 Oaks to Zuni Road connection on the ranch property. It just is what it is. That's where 2 4-lane divided roads are going to come, and there's going to be a gap in the middle. So if the developer's willing to do it, great for credits. But if not, I think that's just something that the city or the county is going to have to work on, is make that roadway connection. Along with, we mentioned Orange and some of the other streets. We just need to get a program going to spend some of these mobility fee funds on making these connections so we can kind of alleviate congestion. Yeah, but no, I don't support the connection to Zuni or to Starline. And with that, if there's nothing else, I'll make a motion to approve Center Lake Ranch Phase N1A West Preliminary Subdivision Plan.
I'll make that a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Trace?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Matheny?
No.
Councilmember Urban?
Aye.
Councilmember Askew?
Aye.
Mayor Blackwell?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Mr. Manzares.
I do not have anything, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Sturgeon.
Thank you, Mayor. Two items. First off, as you know, you were notified several months ago that our finance department got the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. I'm also proud to report we were just notified that they also received the Budget Presentation Award for 2021 budget for the Distinguished Budget Award. Again, we have not received that award for over 20 years. I'm going to do a more formal recognition, so I'd like to congratulate our finance team. She left, I know. That's all right. So they earned a well-deserved administrative day tomorrow. So to start their holiday weekend, I want to wish everybody a happy Easter, and I'll be off also. And tomorrow's Good Friday, so have a blessed holiday season.
Thank you. Councilmember Matheny.
I don't have anything.
Councilmember Urban.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Councilmember Askew.
I have something. If you take a little ride down behind City Hall, head down New York Avenue, you'll take a look at 3 houses that are, in my eyes, are being hacked up. They're all historical houses. One is being changed from a residential to a 3-unit residential. There's nothing we can do. They're not breaking the law. They're getting their improvements. And I'm not blaming the company that's doing it. We're leaving stuff wide open. But once these buildings are hacked up, I watched a building today. Literally, they took the roof off. It was a wooden shingled roof on this building, turn of the century, where we're falling apart here, and we're allowing it to happen. We can't stop it in the big scheme of things, but we're not encouraging them to save the house. We're not doing anything to help them along their way. Extending the CRA that way would be fantastic. I'm not sure we can do that overnight, but there must be some incentive to try to save some of these older historical houses. Taking an old historical house, ripping off the front porch, they get dinged for it, wait a year, come back. Oh, well, no, it was 3 units in there. I don't believe that, but is there something that we can do as council or do I get people to back me? Is there something we can do to help or encourage these people to, one, maybe it's a grant, maybe it's some funding to help them get through, because it's costly in an old historical house. So I don't know. I'm lost. I'm throwing my question out there to you all to maybe, and if you don't believe me, take a ride down New York. And that's only 3 houses on New York. They own a ton. Look, you can look it up. They're going through, they're whipping them out. They're not reselling them. They're renting them out to folks. So they're not breaking the law as far as I understand they're not. But is there something to do before we lose all these historical houses? They're all throughout the grid. Before we, 10 years from now, go, oh, geez, we should have saved some of those. Is there something, or maybe we can look into something that can possibly help save them, help fund it? I don't know if it's a community block grant program. I don't know. So I'm just throwing it out there. And it just literally hit me when I was coming up here to the council meeting.
And so are these homes in the historic district?
We don't have a historic district.
Well, we have the historic preservation area that's
here in the CRA, but we don't have anything that way, do we?
Well, I don't know.
This is
I don't have the map.
anything I believe that's from the 9th Street.
Well, I mean,
or
that
not
might
in
be the consideration is to expand the district.
Right.
Well, and the second part to it is incentives, right? I don't know if we have incentives.
Right now, we really don't. We maybe have the pave incentive, which that is about pave paint and something else.
That's like $3,000 though.
Yeah, $2,000 or $3,000. That's not going to help the person that just ripped off the roof today and go, wow, that's all wooden. You just go, wow, that could be the most beautiful house in St. Cloud. Is going to be. It's already it was ripped off within an hour and already covered. So I don't know. That's where I'm throwing it out there to you guys. I love historical stuff, but
I support
there's a right way.
you. You got 2.
Right, but
But can
what is
staff
it?
research and see what other communities do? Like, I mean, I don't think Winter Park lets you tear things off because I know people have to, like, only a certain percentage of the facade can be affected and things like that. And like,
And if you guys don't mind, I'll send the pictures to Mr. Sturgeon. He can share them to you. Just literally driving down the road going, wow. And I stopped, I talked to the guy, and again, I don't think anybody's doing anything illegal. They have an opportunity here. They can't do this anyplace else. They're coming
Right.
in, taking it all up, whipping a roof on, doing as fast as they can so they can put out there and make some money on the houses for rentals, so. Yeah, I would love, staff always comes up with great ideas, so I'm just hoping that it clicks someplace, somebody out there in TV world, I don't know. I'm just looking for some support. Thank you, Ms. Matheny.
I would support that as well.
Okay,
That's a great
awesome.
idea.
Okay, we'll look into that and work with Mr. Manzares and see if we can look at the different options we have, including expanding the district and.
It might help them,
Put some
even
incentives in
the
place.
developers that come in. If we go, hey, we'll give you incentive to do this to this building to help save its characteristic, I'm sure they'll take it. So, thank you. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Trace.
Thank you. My email's not working, so I can't pull it up, but do we have an update on the power plant cleanup from OUC?
I do not, but I will get that to you
Yeah,
guys.
if we can get an update from them to see how
Sure.
it's going, because I thought we had kind of a time limit of DEP is going to come start knocking on our door.
Yeah, and again, Mr. Trace, that's been transferred over to OUC's responsibility, technical responsibility. I'll check into it. I don't have that answer right now.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I'll be having surgery this coming Thursday for my shoulder.
Finally.
Having fell off the city wagon. So if you guys will keep me in your prayers, I appreciate it.
Fell off the wagon.
So Deputy Mayor Matheny, you will be heading up the workshop and maybe the next council meeting, depending on how quick I can recuperate. That brings us to our information and our report section. Before I give you that list, May 2nd through the 8th is Teacher Appreciation Month in Osceola School District. Just want to make you aware of that, to be sure and thank a teacher. Thursday, April the 21st is a City Council workshop at 3 p.m. here at City Hall Council Chambers. St. Cloud Public Participation Opportunity for the Comprehensive Plan. There'll be an opportunity to be a part of that April the 25th at 6 p.m. at the St. Cloud Community Church, not Center. St. Cloud Public Participation Opportunity for the Comprehensive Plan will also be offered on April the 26th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. However, you will need to register that by emailing planning@stcloud.org. They'll give you a link in order for you to attend. Thursday, April the 28th, there will be a City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m. here in City Hall Council Chambers. Friday and Saturday, April 29th and the 30th, the Institute for Elected Officials #2 will be at Cocoa Beach. There will be 2 proclamations that have been issued: proclamation in recognition of Arbor Day, proclamation in recognition of Fair Housing Month. For your review is warrant list number 9 and Recreation Advisory Committee minutes for February 2022. Hope that all of you have a wonderful, blessed Easter. And with that, we will be adjourned.